Joining us now is Don Martin Hill, Professor of Indigenous Studies and Anthropology at McMaster University. Professor, are you surprised the Vatican has now rejected this doctrine, saying that it didn't reflect the equal dignity and rights of Indigenous peoples?
No, I think it's something that a lot of Indigenous leaders have been asking for some time of the Vatican to rescind the doctrine of discovery, which is terra nullius, the land is empty, unless you're Christian. So it gave way for the invasion, if you will, of not just Canada or the US, but essentially many parts of the world.
How did this doctrine impact Indigenous people in Canada, and are those impacts still being felt today?
Yes, horrifically. In Spain in 1550, there was a debate between Las Casas and Spivalda regarding whether Indigenous people were human or not, because if you were not Christian, you were considered non-human. So the doctrine essentially led way for not only Indigenous genocide, because they could kill as if they were killing animals, which happened in the millions. And the debate, or Las Casas is known as being the father of human rights, argued that we were in fact human. That discourse, that dialogue was studied by many scholars, and we're still stuck in that dialogue today regarding the value of an Indigenous person's life. You know, we could talk about missing and murdered Indigenous women, residential schools. The idea that we were less than or inferior was entrenched in law. It was law. It's not just a doctrine or a belief. It became law in Canada and the US, upheld by numerous decisions in both countries in the Supreme Court dating back to 1835, and recently in the United States between the Oneida and the federal government, in which it was upheld by the courts. So it's still affecting us. It's still impactful in every way. It allowed for not only Indigenous people to be wantonly murdered because they were considered non-human. Of course, the debate was won by Las Casas, and they said, well, we are human, but only human if we're Christian. So it was a doctrine that you really are beginning to see when you look at the United States and what's happening there with the evangelical group of people who are now in power. They're still using this doctrine to basically enhance white supremacy based on Christianity. So it's the two things people don't want to talk about, politics and religion, but it affects Indigenous people on a daily basis.
This rejection of the doctrine today is something Indigenous people have been asking for decades. Do you think this is a step in the right direction on this path of reconciliation with the Catholic Church?
This is what we have wanted all along. I know that clan mothers that have gone to the Vatican as recently as a year ago have been asking for the doctrine of discovery to be rescinded. Many leaders, youth groups, all know that this is a damaging doctrine that was still being upheld. So it's the beginning, I hope, of a new era. It took far too long to get here.
Thanks so much for joining us, Professor.
Thank you.